training that I was running. And to say you were one of my most difficult participants might be an understatement, but I really saw that you wanted to get this at the core level and you wanted to test it every which way because something was shifting in you. And then we decided to go out and do neighbour disputes. I needed somebody to do this. Back then, when we did neighbour disputes in social housing, they were home visits, and it wasn't necessarily the wisest thing to do home visits on one's own. So I invited you to come and do some of those with me. We saw a lot of the way people live in society, a lot of deprivation, a lot of poverty, a lot of strife, I would say. And it was funny really for me because I come from the street, but I always, had we known each other, when we were younger, you would have been that posh bloke, and I think that you saw something in those years, hundreds of neighbour disputes, that then moved us into the more sort of, I think what we discovered was we had something. We had, I created the dialogue roadmap and we saw its use in every aspect of life. And I'm really interested in, moving now from all of that into you as a practitioner and what you see in these kind of business disputes, conflicts from directors, family-owned businesses, founders, those kinds of places. We talk a lot about workplace conflict, but actually if the leadership isn't communicating well, that will affect everybody.
Well, I remember the training. I remember standing up shouting at you all the time. And I think what was going on for me is, often there's an adage, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So I wanted to believe it, but I needed to test it. I still find today that people who are often in the deepest dispute, who are often painted as the most vile, virile and destructive people, they're actually idealists. When I go through it with them, they're trying to hold an ideal. It's the opposite end of the scale. So for me, yes, I gave you a very hard time because I thought this is fantastic. It's another cell. It's another con. It's just what we did for 50 years. You're with me? We sold people a dream. Whether it was true or not was another thing, or a story. So I think, looking back, that's why I wanted it to work. And then we went out, and it was, from me living in my ivory tower as the controller, to actually being physically on the street. I remember the first time we went out, we were on Church Road, cars were parked all over the place. And I said, how come the police don't come down here and deal with the parking? And you said they're too frightened. And I thought, oh, okay, here we go again. It's just another end of the pendulum. But what happened over a lot of years is through being a mediator, I was able to understand my own conflict. By working with people, I could clearly see that often the subject matter of the dispute was nothing to do with the distress and upset. I could see injury, loss, harm, distress, addictions, all the things I'd seen in the business. They were no different. The group of people I was seeing were no different to the people I work with. Some were more functioning than others, and that was the only difference. And what I found, particularly in the social housing, there were a lot of people who had been degraded, given labels, and were living to them, and they were just disempowered and angry and upset and distressed. And it played out in neighbour disputes. And I was very fortunate. And I think the pivotal moment for me, fun enough, was the
All right, we can just take a minute.
Oh. proof in the end. This stuff does get you in the end. Right. I think the pivotal moment for me was when I did the first case with you. I set up a mediation with a family of 5 children and 2 older neighbours downstairs. And it was, for me, that was life-changing. That's where I saw real humanity, real distress, real meeting. And that's where I saw you join in, connect with, be part of. And that made the change. I'd never seen anything like that before. I'd never witnessed it. It was life-changing.
I can see it's really moved you.
Yeah, I don't know
just
why.
remembering, and it's years ago.
And I think that moment fed me ever since. It's what fed me in our relationship. It's what fed me in the work. Because what I saw is that anything is possible.